Enemy of good success. This podcast is a mirror presented to reveal the biblical view of those things that are liable to disallow one from achieving good success in life and most importantly, in the kingdom business. Text, Daniel 5 verses 1 to 12. NLT says, Many years later King Belshazzar gave a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles, and he drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking the wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver cups that his predecessor, Nebuchadnezzar, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. He wanted to drink from them with his nobles, his wives, and his concubines. So they brought these gold cups taken from the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. While they drank from them, they praised their idols made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, they saw the fingers of a human hand writing on the plaster wall of the king's palace, near the lampstand. The king himself saw the hand as it wrote. And his face turned pale with fright. His knees knocked together in fear and his legs gave way beneath him. The king shouted for the enchanters, astrologers, and fortune-tellers to be brought before him. He said to these wise men of Babylon, Whoever can read this writing and tell me what it means will be dressed in purple robes of royal honor and will have a gold chain placed around his neck. He will become the third highest ruler in the kingdom. But when all the king's wise men had come in, none of them could read the writing or tell him what it meant. So the king grew even more alarmed, and his face turned pale. His nobles, too, were shaken. But when the queen mother heard what was happening, she hurried to the banquet hall. She said to Belshazzar, Long live the king! Don't be so pale and frightened. There is a man in your kingdom who has within him the spirit of the holy gods. During Nebuchadnezzar's reign, this man was found to have insight, understanding, and wisdom like that of the gods. Your predecessor, your predecessor King Nebuchadnezzar made him chief over all the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and fortune-tellers of Babylon. This man Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar, has exceptional ability and is filled with divine knowledge and understanding. He can interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems. Call for Daniel, and he will tell you what the writing means. Genesis 41 verses 1 to 15. NLT says, 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. In his dream he saw 7 fat healthy cows come up out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up behind them from the Nile, but these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood beside the fat cows on the river bank. Then the scrawny, thin cows ate the 7 healthy, fat cows. At this point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up. But he fell asleep again and had a second dream. This time he saw 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were shriveled and withered by the east wind. And these thin heads swallowed up the 7 plump, well-formed heads. Then Pharaoh woke up again and realized it was a dream. The next morning Pharaoh was very disturbed by the dreams. So, he called for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. When Pharaoh told them his dreams, not one of them could tell him what they meant. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. Today I have been reminded of my failure, he told Pharaoh. Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant. And everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means. But I have heard that when you hear about a dream you can interpret it. 1 Kings 22 verses 4-9. NLT says. Then he turned to Jehoshaphat and asked, "Will you join me in battle to recover Ramoth Gilead?" Jehoshaphat replied to the king of Israel, "Why, of course. You and I are as one. My troops are your troops, and my horses are your horses." Then Jehoshaphat added, "But first let's find out what the Lord says." So the king of Israel summoned the prophets, about 400 of them, and asked them, "Should I go to war against Ramoth Gilead, or should I hold back?" They all replied, "Yes, go right ahead. The Lord will give the king victory." But Jehoshaphat asked, "Is there not also a prophet of the Lord here? We should ask him the same question." The king of Israel replied to Jehoshaphat, "There is one more man who could consult the Lord for us, but I hate him. He never prophesies anything but trouble for me. His name is Micaiah son of Imlah." Jehoshaphat replied, "That's not the way a king should talk. Let's hear what he has to say." So the king of Israel called one of his officials and said, "Quick! Bring Micaiah son of Imlah." 1 Kings 11 verses 29-40. NLT says. One day as Jeroboam was leaving Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah from Shiloh met him along the way. Ahijah was wearing a new cloak. The two of them were alone in a field, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 of these pieces, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, I am about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and I will give 10 of the tribes to you. But I will leave him 1 tribe for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. For Solomon has abandoned me and worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Molech, the god of the Ammonites. He has not followed my ways and done what is pleasing in my sight. He has not obeyed my decrees and regulations as David his father did. But I will not take the entire kingdom from Solomon at this time. For the sake of my servant David, the one whom I chose and who obeyed my commands and decrees, I will keep Solomon as leader for the rest of his life. But I will take the kingdom away from his son and give 10 of the tribes to you. His son will have 1 tribe so that the descendants of David my servant will continue to reign, shining like a lamp in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen to be the place for my name. And I will place you on the throne of Israel, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. If you listen to what I tell you and follow my ways and do whatever I consider to be right, and if you obey my decrees and commands, as my servant David did, then I will always be with you. I will establish an enduring dynasty for you as I did for David, and I will give Israel to you. Because of Solomon's sin I will punish the descendants of David though not forever." Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but he fled to King Shishak of Egypt and stayed there until Solomon died. Objectives: the objective of this message is to let us know that systems can work if right principles are applied and backed with God's help accrued through prayer, but as effective as prayer is, it cannot work without right principles, and these are to be deliberately applied and not by accident as we can see in many situations, thereby affecting the faith of some people. Introduction: a generation that seems to have answers to all puzzle on their own, a generation that tends to know everything without the help of any, a generation that tends to be an island of knowledge, are mostly, if not always losing the important things of life, labeling the error on what are not supposed to be mentioned at all. If only the devil can appear openly, he would have challenged most faults placed on him. We have relegated the basis for success to our own ideology, and the dangers coming out of that is what is responsible for what we are experiencing in our society, but that still does not mean there can't be changes. Whoever must get it right, must be willing to get the foundation right, else, the looming disasters are around the corner. Message: what is success? It is the achievement of one's aim or goal, or success is the state or condition of meeting a defined range of expectations. This now, can be good or bad. Whatever an individual aims at doing, be it good or bad, its achievement is success. Enemy: a person who is actively opposed or hostile to someone or something or a thing that harms or weakens something else. So, if I am talking about enemy of good success, I am talking about a person or a thing that harms or weakens the achievement of one's aim or goal. Now, this takes us back to our texts for today. The first Bible passage is Daniel, he was successful. The second was Joseph, he was also successful. The third was Micaiah, he was successful as well. The fourth was Jeroboam and he was not successful. Why? Is there any enemy of success in these stories? The enemy of good success I will be talking about is disappointment. What is disappointment? It is the sadness or displeasure caused by the non-fulfillment of one's hopes or expectations. In kingdom business, there is nothing you have that is for the fun of it. Know that today and grow bigger. Either spiritual gifts, spiritual offices, physical possessions, offices, or promotions. There is always the need for you to note that someone recommended you, because of confidence imposed on you and because God allows it. You are not the best, there are others better than you do, no room for competition or comparison, you don't have the whole time to yourself, there are issues still within your purview, that is meant for you, in fact that means your reason of being there. All of these mean that, if God allows you to be there, if God allows you to be blessed, if God allows you to have it more than others, you cannot afford to disappoint God and those who recommended you. Should that happen? There is more than only you can handle. Let me remind you of the sayings of Mordecai to Esther. The Book of Esther 4 verses 13 to 14. NLT says, Mordecai sent this reply to Esther, don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace you will escape when all other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this? How many people have lost one thing or the other simply because of disappointment? Have you not seen people losing a lot of money as a result of disappointment? Therefore, it dawns on me that among the many enemies of good success, disappointment is crucial. If you are praying to be successful, then, you must ensure you work on yourself. Whatever professional line you are, guard against disappointment. In whatever office you occupy, guard against disappointment. Whatever gift you have, guard against disappointment. The moment you are careless, and you have made disappointment your bosom friend, then, you are the enemy of yourself. Learn lessons from Jeroboam. Thank you for listening and God bless you. You can visit www.evanteo.com.ng for more digital resources.